They call you too nice. Right there, short, familiar, almost affectionate. But you felt that sting, didn't you? That tiny, last-second shame when someone said it like it was a diagnosis instead of a symptom. Sit with that for a second. It's not a compliment. It's a flag. Picture it. A whiteboard with sticky notes. The kind of Monday 9 a.m. meeting where the project manager, Jenna, asks for alignment. You smile. You nod. Your voice stays soft because you want buy-in, not friction. Someone pushes an idea, you don't push back. By the time the meeting ends, you've agreed to take on another deliverable. You say yes because the team needs it, because you don't want to be seen as difficult, because you've learned in so many slow ways that the easiest path is to keep the peace. Afterward, you scroll through Slack, and there it is. Thanks for stepping up. Great to have you on this. Gratitude disguised as obligation. You walk back to your desk lightheaded, and 2 hours later you find an updated shared spreadsheet with your name in a column labeled Owner. That's how it starts. Now imagine Thanksgiving with your in-laws. Aunt Karen makes a passive comment about how you always take things too seriously, and you smile and pivot the conversation because you hate tension over gravy. Your partner shrugs, "It's fine, don't worry about it," and you swallow the irritation because you don't want the holiday to explode. Later, your cousin borrows your car for just an hour and shows up 48 hours later with an extra dent and a shrug. You pay the deductible because arguing about it feels like escalating the family drama. You tell yourself it's fine. You tell yourself you like being helpful. Or here's a quieter scene. You're on the couch after a fight. Your partner looks at you with that tired, expectant face, and before you can think, you say, "I'm sorry." It's rehearsed, a reflex from 1,000 small domes of peace you've built. You apologize first to diffuse, to keep the relationship alive. Later, they lean further into that pattern, testing, pressing a boundary, then retreating when you comply. That "I'm sorry" became a lever. Do you feel the pattern under your skin now? Relief bubbles up because someone named what you've been carrying. Finally, validation. That soft, familiar exhaustion has a name, but alongside that relief there's another feeling. Anger. Real anger. Not the performative kind you see on social posts, but a slow, hot recognition that this hasn't been just personal failure. It's not just you being flawed. It's a readable pattern others exploit. That quiet, habitual kindness isn't neutral. It's data. Here's the part most people miss. Being too nice isn't an ethical judgment. It's a signal. In social ecosystems, workplaces, families, romantic relationships, other people are always scanning for information. They look for patterns, cues, anything predictable they can use to steer outcomes. A consistent yes, quick apologies, immediate concessions, those are bright, flashing beacons to opportunists. Not necessarily cartoonish villains. Sometimes it's the coworker who's perpetually late with their part of the workload because they've learned you'll cover them. Sometimes it's the friend who always forgets to Venmo you back because guilt keeps your mouth shut. Sometimes it's a partner who frames entitlement as need and waits for you to fill the gap. They aren't inventing abuse out of malice every time. They're testing the cost-benefit, and if the math says you'll pay the cost, they'll keep coming. Let me give you a tiny, specific micro-manipulation. A colleague asks you for a quick favor. Review a deck, make a few edits, jump on a call. You say yes. Then, because you did the first time, they assume the second and the third. Over weeks, one favor expands into co-ownership of that person's deliverables, because your initial yes created a precedent. In behavioral terms, you trained them with a pattern of compliance. They didn't have to be malicious. They merely adapted to the environment you provided. Or the friend who chronically forgets to split bills. You keep paying. Each unpaid share chips away at your resources, and their behavior escalates because it's been profitable for them. Same with the partner who reads your empathy as permission. You debrief after their day, you listen, you offer solutions, and slowly they start outsourcing emotional labor to you. What began as compassion turns into an unpaid managerial role for other people's feelings. These scenes aren't dramatic. They're invisible transitions from courtesy to casualty. There's a final crucial detail. The label "too nice" functions as a low-effort test. Someone tosses it out not only to describe you but to see how you react. Do you laugh it off? Do you double down on being helpful? Do you apologize when you don't need to? Your response becomes feedback to them. If you flinch, they push further. If you stand firm, not mean, not defensive, but strategically unmoved, the test fails. So what changes when you hear "too nice"? Most people feel embarrassed and double down. They promise themselves to be tougher later, as if toughness were an on-off switch. That's not the solution. In truth, the moment you recognize the label as a signal, it stops being a moral judgment and becomes a strategic problem. Predictable behavior is a resource for others. You don't need to become harsh. You need to become unreadable. I want you to hold two feelings at once: relief, because your experience is real and named, and anger, because that truth means you've been optimized by other people's choices. The anger isn't about revenge, it's about calibration. Once you accept that "too nice" is a targeting tool, you stop blaming yourself for feeling violated and start analyzing the mechanism that allowed it. You start to see the small interactions that, when strung together, form a map of how people learn to use you. Here's the promise. Now that we've exposed the signal, the test, and the tiny scenes that lead from kindness to captivity, there's a way to neutralize it. You don't become a medicated icebox. You become harder to read. You protect your energy like an asset, and you make sure consent, reciprocity, and responsibility are paid in full. In the next segment, we'll unpick this "too nice" test step by step, the exact micro-triggers people look for, and how those triggers are exploited. You'll see the architecture of the manipulation laid bare, and from there you'll get the tactics to stop being an easy target. Here's the part that few mention. This label is the first test predatory social actors apply without even knowing it. And in the next block, we'll deconstruct that test, piece by piece, so you can spot it before you get caught. Now that the label's been named, let's pull the curtain back and watch the test run. Think like a detective for a minute. Quiet, patient, looking for patterns. The behaviors that feel small and human. Smiling too soon, saying "no problem," apologizing first, are not innocent acts floating in a vacuum. They're inputs. In social engineering terms, they're probes. And the people around you are running diagnostics, often without realizing it. Start with the most boring classroom technique in the manipulator's playbook: commitment and consistency. You say yes to something small, review one slide, grab coffee for the meeting, and unconsciously you become that person who says yes. That's how the foot in the door works. Low-cost compliance creates a precedent. Next week it's another favor, then another, until your job title hasn't changed but your workload has. I've watched it happen in teams, from a tech startup in Soma to a finance shop on Wall Street. Someone asks a small favor on Monday. By Friday, the asker has relabeled your free labor as owning the project. It's not magical, it's mathematical. Reciprocity is the second lever. We're raised on it. Grandma gives you a casserole. You feel indebted. Someone buys you a drink at a bar. You feel obliged to reciprocate. Manipulators hand out tiny social currency: praise, emergency calls, practical help, and then cash it in when they want a favor that costs you more. The trick is that reciprocity feels moral. Who wants to be the jerk who doesn't return a kindness? So you pay again and again, and the balance sheet looks like everyone's polite until you actually add up the numbers. Then there's oversharing and emotional transparency, a vulnerability we celebrate in coaching and therapy culture. Be open. Be authentic. That's not bad advice, but in a strategic environment, it's a liability. When you explain your weekend plans, your stressors, your schedule, you provide data. People read that data. They learn who apologizes first, who needs reassurance, who reacts instantly. The person who broadcasts their timing of availability has just painted a target on their calendar. I know someone, let's call her Lisa, who would always tell coworkers, "I'll stay late tonight," as she left the office. Within weeks, late-night tasks found her. She wasn't being used by a cartoon villain. She was being optimized by colleagues who prefer their problems solved on someone else's time. Understand, most of this is opportunism, not theatrical cruelty. There are conscious manipulators, people who build a pattern, test it, and escalate deliberately. But more often, it's opportunists, co-workers, friends, partners who notice the easiest path and follow it. That distinction matters because it changes your response. Against an opportunist, a small recalibration is usually enough. Against a deliberate manipulator, you need systems and, sometimes, distance. Either way, the tactics that work against those behaviors are the same. Stop giving free data and stop selling compliance cheaply. Here's how the test usually unfolds in 3 steps. Step 1. Low-cost probe. Can you just? A quick favor, a little help, a casual test question. Step 2. Gauge reaction. Do you flinch? Explain? Default to yes? Apologize preemptively? Those are the signals testers are looking for. Step 3. Escalation. If you complied, the asker ups the cost until it becomes part of your job, your weekend, your emotional labor. If you didn't comply, they either walk away or negotiate. That's the entire sequence. And it repeats because it's effective. Let me get surgical for a second and name the specific micro-triggers people scan for. 1. Speed of agreement. How fast you say yes. Faster means less deliberation. 2. Apology reflex. Who apologizes first when a conflict appears. First apologizers are easier to steer. 3. Transparency of constraints. Who shares their calendar, financial tightness, or emotional limits openly. That person becomes a resource map. 4. Transaction framing. Who conflates favor with identity, saying things like, "I'm just helpful." That's a pre-commitment that others will exploit. These aren't subjective judgments. They're observable behaviors people use to model how much they can push. Why are we so easy to train this way? Because our socialization teaches it. From kindergarten, we're rewarded for sharing. We're taught to say sorry to keep harmony. We learn to be agreeable in group projects so we don't get the difficult person label. Add in corporate cultures that fetishize going the extra mile, and relationships that valorize emotional labor, and you have a perfect training ground. The system primes certain folks to be readable, and predators, or just efficient opportunists, do what organisms do: exploit the available niche. This is where the shame shifts into clarity. If you recognize these patterns in your own life, don't sit with embarrassment. Sit with the fact that you were conditioned. That's different. Conditioning is neutral. It's a process you can reverse, or at least complicate. Once you understand the probes and the triggers, you stop internalizing every failure as a character flaw and start treating it like a mechanics problem. What part of the machine is giving away too much information? And here's the critical insight you need to take forward. This whole flow, probe, gauge, escalate, depends on predictability. If your responses are predictable, you're a target. If they're opaque, the tests fail. That's the engineering truth beneath the psychology. It isn't about becoming hard or cruel. It's about denying other people the data they need to automate you. I'm not promising softness will disappear. I'm promising that when you learn to modulate your answers, your availability, and your confessions, the cost-benefit rationale that drives opportunists collapses. So right now, start watching. Notice who asks for the small things and then asks again. Notice how quickly you say yes. Notice what you tell people about your limits. That awareness is your first defensive layer. In the next segment, I'll lay out the exact probes people use and, more importantly, how to counter them in real time. Not by becoming a fortress, but by becoming strategically unreadable. It's a rule that undoes the test without turning you into someone else. Not by becoming a fortress, but by becoming strategically unreadable. That's the line to carry forward. Imagine being in a room where people can't find the knobs that control you. They can't predict which button to press, so they stop trying. That's illegibility. It's not drama. It's applied discipline. You control what people know, when they know it, and how much they can rely on you. And because the world runs on predictability, on people optimizing for the easiest path, this shift changes the incentives around you overnight. Start with timing. The fastest way to be exploited is to be quick. Quick yeses, quick apologies, quick explanations. They're like flashing neon that says instant compliance here. The counterintuitive step is simple. Delay. Not forever, not avoidance, but calibrated delay. Say you're at a Monday stand-up, and Jenna asks you to own the client deck. Instead of, "Sure," you say, "I need to check my bandwidth. I'll get back to you by end of day." That buys you time to check your calendar, log the ask into your resource ledger, and decide deliberately. It forces the asker to quantify their request if they want an immediate answer. Most people won't. The ones who will are, by definition, more serious or more predatory. Either way, you have more information before committing. Delay works because it transforms spontaneity into a negotiable variable. It's not rude, it's professional. You're not hiding, you're managing information. Think of it like holding a batting stance longer, so the pitcher can't sell you a fastball you didn't intend to swing at. Next tool, the return question. This is an underrated power move. When a partner texts, "Can you come over tonight?" Instead of reacting emotionally, flip it back. What's your priority? What do you need if I'm there? In a meeting, when someone says, "Can you handle the timeline?" you answer, "What would success look like? And when is the deadline?" These questions do three things. They force clarity, they redistribute cognitive load, and they convert vague favors into bargain terms. People who want things without the work often don't bother to answer their own questions fully. They prefer to pump your compliance. Returning the question makes them earn your help. Now let's talk about the resource ledger. You probably laugh at the idea of a spreadsheet for favors, but that's the point. Illegibility treats emotional labor and time like real assets. Use a simple Google Sheet or Notion page. Log requests, time estimates, outcomes. Label who asked, when, and whether they reciprocated. After 2 weeks, you'll have a visible pattern. Who drains you and who invests back. You're not keeping score to punish anyone. You're building a map so your yeses are strategic, not reflexive. When someone asks for a favor, and you check your ledger and realize you've already covered 5 similar asks this month, you have the data to say no without melodrama. Ambiguity is another tool, but be careful. Ambiguity is a scalpel, not a hammer. The goal isn't to ghost people or to weaponize silence. It's to be intentionally non-committal until you know the terms. Picture 2 versions of the same scene. In one, you text back immediately with, "Of course," and the asker proceeds to schedule everything around you. In the other, you reply, "Let me check and I'll confirm tonight." The second version prevents your calendar from being someone else's default. It doesn't hurt the relationship. It creates friction that weeds out opportunism. People who respect you will adapt. People who count on your default yes will either negotiate or move on. Discipline here is everything. I don't mean acting robotic. I mean training your reflexes. Start with a 48-hour rule for major asks, not for small day-to-day, but for commitments that cost time, money, or emotional labor. Give yourself routines. Check your ledger before agreeing to weekend plans. Ask 2 clarifying questions before assigning yourself ownership at work. Use voice memos to practice steady tones for boundary conversations. The small practices create a nervous system that defaults to illegibility instead of to accommodation. You'll notice a subtle but critical distinction. Illegibility preserves empathy. It doesn't erase it. Think of empathy as capital. You can invest it wisely or you can leak it. The person who is too nice leaks empathy freely. They give it away without structure. The illegible person allocates empathy where there's reciprocal return or clear priority. That's not cruel. It's stewardship. You're deciding where your energy has the highest yield. Let me give you a quick scene that makes the difference feel tangible. 2 co-workers get the same late request from a manager at 5 p.m. Coworker A replies at 5:07, "I'll do it," and stays late. Coworker B replies, "I can take this," What's the deadline and what parts do you expect me to own? The manager who wants cheap, immediate labor takes A. The manager who needs accountability and results chooses B. Over time, A becomes a convenience. B becomes a trusted bottleneck. Which person do you want to be? Convenience or bottleneck? The eligible person commands respect because they're not always available on demand. They're available by design. There will be social costs. Some friendships will fray. Some colleagues will be annoyed. Expect it. That friction is the price of changing an economy that profited from your predictability. But most interactions will recalibrate quickly. People either step up and communicate clearly, or they stop assuming. Both outcomes reduce your drain. Finally, adopt a protocol for tests. When someone labels you too nice, respond like a strategist, not a suspect. A simple internal checklist. Pause for 5 seconds, ask a clarifying question, consult your ledger, decide. Turn that checklist into a habit. The more automatic it becomes, the less mental energy you waste on guilt or defensiveness, and the faster you break the foot-in-the-door loop. I promise that illegibility is discipline, not dishonesty. That's the promise fulfilled. You keep your values. You just stop publishing your operating manual. You protect your empathy like capital. Invest where it compounds. Deny where it drains. Do this, and the solicitations that used to find you like a lightning rod will start searching for easier victims. Next up, we'll move from these principles to repeatable scripts you can use word for word in meetings, dates, and family dinners. You'll get the exact phrases that return questions, enforce delays, and log resources without drama. For now, practice one thing. The next time someone asks you for an immediate yes, don't answer. Say, "I'll get back to you." Then check your ledger. That small pause is the first rep toward being unreadable. Good. Now we walk into the training room. This is where ideas stop being theory and become muscle memory. Picture 3 scenes back to back. Your team at 5 p.m., your partner texting after a fight, and Aunt Karen cornering you at Thanksgiving. In each, you've already learned the principle: delay, question, ledger. But here I'm going to give you the exact language and the escalation logic that turns those principles into outcomes. Say these lines out loud once or twice, so they're not foreign when the moment comes. They're short. They're surgical. They're designed to preserve your dignity and test the asker's seriousness. Start at work. Jenna drops the "just one more thing" at the end of stand-up. Most people smile and say yes. You don't. You say, "I can do that if the timeline and scope match my current priorities. Can you send me the details and the deadline by EOD and I'll confirm?" That line does 3 things. It forces specificity, it creates a paper trail, and it buys you time. If Jenna never follows up with specifics, you didn't lose anything, she did. If she replies with a deadline and clear deliverables, you can open your calendar and decide strategically. If she asks for an immediate yes, ask back, "Why does it need to be now instead of tomorrow morning?" Most opportunists can't justify urgency because urgency is the lever that extracts free labor. If the vague favor becomes a pattern, same ask, different week, escalate with a consistency test. I've handled similar requests the last 3 times. I need to understand whether this should be official ownership or a one-off. If it's ongoing, let's reassign responsibilities or I'll need support to deliver. You're not blaming. You're reframing the ask as a resourcing problem. If the manager insists without offering resources, attach a cost. "I can take this on, but it'll push X to next week. Do you want me to reprioritize or can we assign this elsewhere?" That's the cost in currency move. Time and deliverables become bargaining chips, not invisible extras you absorb. Now dating. Your partner pushes for reassurance. "Are you sure about us? Tell me you love me right now." You don't feed the demand instantly. You respond, "I want this conversation to be useful, not a reflex. Tell me what changed that you need this now." If they press for an immediate emotional pledge, return the question, "What would you need to hear that would help you feel secure?" That redirects the ask from guilt to a problem statement. If insecurity becomes a habit, nightly fishing for reassurance, institute a test of consistency. I can't be your nightly emotional short-term loan. If this keeps coming up, let's schedule a time where we both can be present and talk through patterns. If they insist on nightly validation, add a real cost. I'm happy to have these conversations, but not at midnight when I'm exhausted. If we can't reschedule, I'll limit my responses to planning a time to talk. Family is where the guilt weapon is sharpest. Aunt Karen says, "Oh, you always make such a fuss. Can't you just—" And the old reflex is to apologize and shrink. New line, "I hear you. I'm not able to do that right now." That's it. No explanation, no justifying. If she pushes, but it's for the family, use the return question. What would you like me to handle specifically? And who else is available? If the ask is repeated and you find yourself the default, escalate to a consistency test. I've covered X and Y the last 2 times. I'm not the default planner for holidays. If no one volunteers, I'll do parts A and B, not everything. Lee, if they guilt you anyway, impose a cost that matters. I can come, but I won't be handling food or logistics unless we agree to split responsibilities. That forces redistribution. It's not mean, it's boundary economics. Memorize 3 short scripts and use them where appropriate. I'll check and get back to you by time. What does success look like for this? And I'm not available for that without resource, cost. They're bland, boring, and effective. Exactly the opposite of melodrama. They convert vagueness into transactions. People who respect you will give details. People who count on your reflexive yes will either negotiate or walk away. Now the escalation ladder. Because one line won't fix everything. Think of it like a 3-step test. Step 1. Simple test. Delay plus return question. Measures seriousness and information. Step 2. Consistency test. If the pattern repeats, require reclassification. Is this a recurring responsibility or a one-off? This forces the other person to own the cost. Step 3. Cost imposition. If they still push, make non-compliance expensive. Assign time, money, or attention. I'll do this, but it'll be on my weekend. Or, I can handle part of this for X. Or, I'll be present, but I'm not taking ownership. Watch what happens. 3 things will tell you it worked. First, the asker recedes. They back off because the path of least resistance disappeared. Second, they negotiate. They offer trade-offs, clarity, or resources. That's normal and healthy. Third, they insist. If someone insists after your escalation and refuses to negotiate, that's useful information. You now know who's an opportunist and who's a predator. Act accordingly. Limit contact, escalate to HR, or in family cases, set firmer boundaries. Keep measuring. After you start using these scripts, track 3 signals for 2 weeks. Who asks again with no added cost, who begins to specify terms, and who leaves you as the default. Use your ledger. Log the request, your response, outcome, and whether reciprocity followed. You don't need a spreadsheet to be moral. You're building operational clarity. People will object. That sounds cold. Fine. This is not cruelty. It's resource management. You're not taking away empathy. You're allocating it. The person who says you're being mean usually prefers your previous arrangement because it made their life easier. Expect resistance. Expect some relationships to contract. That is the social cost of recalibrating your economy. Also expect something else. Most opportunists will either adjust quickly or self-select out. The world suddenly becomes quieter because you stop being a default convenience. Finally, practice right now. 3 small experiments you can do today. 1. In work chat, the next time someone asks for a favor, reply with, "I'll check and get back to you by EOD." 2. Tonight, when a partner or friend asks for immediate emotional labor, respond with, "What outcome are you hoping for here?" 3. At family dinner, when asked to take on organizing something, say, "I'm not available to lead that. Who else can help?" Do those 3 and log what happens. This is where theory meets reps. Get those 3 small wins and note the change in how people respond. Who recedes, who negotiates, who insists. That feedback loop is your curriculum. In the next segment, we convert these reps into habits. The 48-hour rule, daily ledger reviews, practice scripts until they're automatic. For now, practice one script, measure the response, and come back with the data. The game changes when you stop being readable. You're not doing a weekend sprint or a motivational cleanse. This is discipline. Imagine the next 8 weeks of your life as a training block, not for your body, but for your conversational reflexes, your calendar muscles, your moral economy. That's the story I want you to follow. One person, small experiments, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and gradual recalibration until the old reflexes feel foreign. Let me walk you through a practical program that turns the theory you've learned into a new operating system. Week 1 is about one simple habit, the 48-hour rule. Everywhere it's useful, use it. If Jenna in Soma drops a "Can you own the client" deck at stand-up, don't answer on the spot. Say, "I'll check and get back to you by EOD." If your partner texts after an argument, don't send a guilt-soaked apology at 11:47 p.m. Say, "I want to talk when I'm clear. Let's plan for tomorrow." That pause is where leverage is built. 2 days buys you information and perspective. It forces askers to either clarify urgency or let the request cool. Practice this 10 times this week. Track each instance in a tiny log on Google Sheets or Notion. Who asked, what was asked, when you replied, and the outcome. That spreadsheet becomes your single source of truth. Week 2. Ledger up. The ledger isn't petty accounting. It's clarity. Create 3 columns. Request, time cost, reciprocity. If your cousin borrows your car for an hour and returns it with a dent 2 days later, that's cousin 4 hours, including dealing with insurance. No repayment. If you stayed late Friday to cover a colleague's tasks and they never acknowledged you, log it. At the end of each week, total the hours you've effectively donated. If you find you're consistently giving away 10 hours a week to other people's problems, that's not generosity. It's your resource model being extracted. Set a threshold. If you give away more than X hours without reciprocation 2 weeks running, escalate a boundary. Week 3. Tone and taxonomy. Stand in front of a mirror or record a voice memo and say the scripts until your mouth owns the cadence. Say, "I'll confirm by 5 p.m. Say, "What would success look like here?" Say, "I'm not available without support." Don't perform coldness. Perform steadiness. People confuse firmness with unkindness because they've never heard a controlled voice from someone who used to be reflexively apologetic. Practice until your normal response is calm and declarative, not defensive or guilty. If you work remotely, rehearse on Slack or Loom so you can study your face and tone. Being unreadable isn't about blankness. It's about removing emotional volatility from decision moments. Week 4. Accountability drills. Find one person who will call you out, not to shame you, but to keep you honest. This could be a direct colleague, a friend who knows your tendencies, even a coach. Give them access to the ledger and ask them to check in weekly. The benefit is threefold. External pressure makes internal habits stick. Somebody else sees blind spots you miss, and the social cost of slipping back becomes real. Do a 2-week experiment together. You both agree on 3 metrics: unnecessary concessions per week, average reply latency on asks, and % of favors reciprocated. Compare notes. You will be surprised how fast patterns reveal themselves. Expect friction. This is not a cosmetic change. Some people will push back. Aunt Karen will be annoyed when you stop handling holiday logistics. A coworker who relied on your midnight availability will start complaining. That's normal. Losses happen because you're changing the incentive structure they were exploiting. Your job is to accept the loss as cost of transition. Don't apologize for enforcing boundaries. Frame them. Use neutral explanations. I've shifted how I manage my time. I can take on part A, but not all of it. If someone insists after escalation, You've used delay, ledger checks, return questions, and they still demand default compliance. Treat their insistence as data. They've shown you who they are. Metrics matter because they remove drama. Measure weekly. How many immediate yeses did you avoid? How many requests resulted in a clarified scope? How many relationships asked again without offering reciprocation? Set simple goals. Reduce reflexive yeses by 50% in 30 days. Increase reciprocated requests by 30%. Watch for the qualitative signal too. Do you feel less drained on Sunday night? Do your evenings feel protected? Those are the real KPIs. Ethics is central here. This is not about weaponizing people. The intention is defense. You protect your capital, time, attention, empathy, so you can spend it where it compounds. If someone is in real crisis and asks for help within reasonable limits, you help. But you won't convert your life into an emergency fund for people who treat your generosity as a line item. Distinguish between need and convenience. That taxonomy keeps you moral and practical at the same time. Finally, install 2 rituals that turn these changes into identity. First, a weekly 5-minute ledger review every Sunday. Scan last week's entries, adjust thresholds, celebrate one boundary you kept. Second, a monthly audit, a short document where you answer 3 questions. Who drained me this month? Who invested in me? And what pattern must I stop repeating? This audit is your internal HR. It keeps you honest and scalable. You're going to lose some friends, and you're going to gain back hours of life. That trade is intentional. The person who remains in your orbit after you stop being an accessible convenience is not losing anything. They're choosing to relate to you as a whole person, not a free service. That's the hard prize. Do the program. 48-hour rule, ledger, tone practice, accountability partner, weekly metrics, and monthly audit. Start today with one experiment. Next time someone asks for an immediate yes, pause, log the request, and tell them you'll respond within 48 hours. Come back to your ledger and use that single entry to begin the weeks I just outlined. When those reflexes change, your social economy changes. When your social economy changes, your options grow. In the final segment, we'll tie these habits into long-term reputation work, how being unreadable alters promotions, relationships, and who shows up when it matters. For now, start the small, consistent work. Your future self will not just thank you, they'll be harder to swallow. Run the 2 scenes in your head with me one last time. Same room, same people, same ask, and watch what changes. Scene A. It's the Monday stand-up. Jenna drops another, "Can you take that?" You smile, say, "Sure." And by Friday you're working late, rescheduling dinner with friends, and the project gets listed under your name in the spreadsheet. Scene B. Same meeting, same Jenna. You say, "I'll check my bandwidth and confirm by EOD." You log the request in your ledger. You ask what success looks like. Jenna either comes back with specifics and resources, or she doesn't. In a month, Scene A looks like burnout with a raise that never arrives. Scene B looks like boundaries, leverage, and people who learn to treat you like a constraint, not a free resource. That contrast is brutal and clarifying. It's not sentimental, it's arithmetic. This is the before-after you wanted. Becoming strategically unreadable changes not just immediate asks, it remaps your whole social economy. Promotions start to look different. Think about it. The person who is always available is the easiest scapegoat for extra work and the least likely to get credit when success lands. Leaders want predictable outcomes, not predictable labor. When you're illegible, when you demand clarity, tie asks to outcomes and treat your time like capital. You stop being the default answer to every problem. You become the bottleneck people have to negotiate with. That's power. That's leverage. And yes, it changes how people see you. There are real costs. Some folks will leave the orbit you used to inhabit. Aunt Karen might glare at you across the table. That friend who relied on your free counseling might call you cold. Expect it and plan for it. Those losses aren't punishments. They're audits. They reveal which relationships were transactional and which were reciprocal. The ones that survive this discipline are more honest and less draining. The others? Let them go. You'll find better options when you stop being the convenient default. Long-term maintenance is where this becomes sustainable, and not just performative drama. Treat your new posture like a small business that needs quarterly reviews. Here's a durable architecture you can use. Not to be rigid, but to make illegibility habitual. First, a quarterly emotional audit. Every 3 months, sit down for an hour and answer 3 questions. Who consumed more of my time and energy than they returned? Who invested in me? What boundary did I fail to enforce, and why? Write answers in a document titled Q234 Audit. This creates a reputation record for yourself and makes the invisible visible. Second, scheduled surprise tests. Once each quarter, run a low-stakes experiment. Accept one small favor immediately and another only after 48 hours, then compare outcomes. Which request escalated? Which person negotiated? You're not being cruel. You're gathering intelligence about patterns you can't see in real time. After a few cycles, you'll predict behavior like a market analyst predicts trends. Third, a list of non-negotiables. Write down 3 boundaries that are truly non-negotiable. Examples: no work after 8 p.m. And no last-minute childcare duties. No unpaid emotional triage more than once a month. Post them where you'll see them. Your calendar, your notes app, your roommate's fridge if you have to. Those lines aren't dramatic statements. They're operating parameters. When you enforce them, people learn your operating system. Fourth, keep the ledger alive. That simple Google Sheet or Notion page isn't paperwork. It's data that corrects stories. Track requests, estimated time cost, and reciprocity. Every Sunday, spend 5 minutes updating entries and reviewing one pattern. That small ritual prevents old reflexes from sneaking back in when you're tired or socially coerced. Fifth, an accountability partner. Choose someone blunt who knows you, a colleague, a coach, a friend, and share the ledger once a month. The social cost of slipping back should be real. Phone calls work better than texts here. Create friction for yourself to stick to change. The people who'll call you out are the ones who want you to be better, not just easier. Now the identity work. You'll need a few mantras that sound less like therapy slogans and more like operational commands. Use them privately when your reflex wants to feed guilt. I am not the default. My empathy is capital. I decide my availability. Say them out loud in the car, in the bathroom, before a meeting. They aren't feel-good fluff. They're posture training. The shorter and darker they are, the more likely you'll use them under stress. Reputation management matters too. You don't have to broadcast your rules like a manifesto, but you should shape your profile and signals. On LinkedIn, don't be the miracle worker who always goes the extra mile in the headline. Use language that hints at boundaries. Focus, delivery, not firefighting. In Slack, standardize responses so you don't sound apologetic when you decline. Ritualizing this language prevents you from slipping into old, ingratiating cadences. And when people clash with your new posture, handle it like a strategist. Reframe objections as logistics, not attacks. If someone says, "You've changed," reply, "I changed how I manage my commitments. I'm still here for X, Y, and Z." If they escalate, treat it like data. Either they negotiate in good faith or they reveal their expectations. Either outcome is useful. This is the ledger of your life manifest, a system that turns empathy into investment instead of leakage. It doesn't make you callous. It makes you competent. You'll have less drama, more bandwidth, and relationships that don't run off your free labor. So here's the action you actually take today, right now, and why it's decisive. The next time someone asks you for an immediate yes, in Slack, at the dinner table over text, don't answer. Say, "I'll check and get back to you by EOD." Then log that ask in your ledger and set a timer to review it. That 5-second pause is the first rep toward becoming unreadable. If you're ready to start, do one more thing. Leave a comment with this sentence: "I protect my empathy as capital." Say it in the comments like you mean it. That's your public contract and the start of your audit trail.